No, the Rams should not trade Matthew Stafford right now, but should they at least consider it if it looks like they're not going to make the playoffs this season? That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Ramily, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rams, your daily podcast covering your Los Angeles Rams. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're also available over on YouTube, so if you haven't yet, do us a huge favor. Join the party. Just hit 14,000 subscribers, trying to get to 15K. So hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, hit that like button, and let us know. Would you consider trading Matthew Stafford if the Rams lose on Sunday and if this season looks like it's going south? My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMac_LA. I've been covering LA sports for over a decade, 24/7 sports, Dodgers Nation, Bleacher Report, SI, the Rams for Locked On. And as always, I'm joined by the Rams pre-half and post-game show host for the Rams flagship radio station, ESPN 710 LA. He just entered his 9th season covering your Los Angeles Rams, the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers. You can follow him on X at Travis Rogers. And on today's episode, we are giving you the keys to a Rams upset victory, hopefully, against the Niners in their home opener at SoFi Stadium. Key matchups you need to be looking for. Also, we're going to touch on the Matthew Stafford trade speculation that's running rampant around the airwaves. We're getting into that. But first, today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. All right, Travis. So, like I said, I'm not going to call this Matthew Stafford trade rumors just yet because the truth is there are no legitimate, substantial rumors. It's analysts that are throwing his name out there, making suggestions. We call it speculation in the biz. And really, with Stafford, I mean, his name's going to be linked to other teams, just like it was when the Jets lost Aaron Rodgers last year and they checked in with the Rams. But the trade I want to start with, kind of get your take on, is former quarterback Chase Daniel. Chase Daniel, he's suggesting that the Dolphins shouldn't go after Bryce Young. They should go after Matthew Stafford in a 3-team trade. Bryce Young would be traded to the Rams. Matthew Stafford would go to the Dolphins in a 3-team trade. The Rams get Bryce Young. The Panthers get some picks. For me, in the words of the great Randy Jackson, that's a no for me, dog.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to unpack in that scenario. Number one, unless Sean McVay is looking to increase his degree of difficulty and cement himself as the greatest quarterback whisperer of all time, nobody needs to be in the Bryce Young business. He's a bum, and he's 5'8". You can't play 5'8". You can't be 5'8" and play quarterback in the NFL. It doesn't work. No disrespect to him. I'm sure he's a nice guy. I'm sure he's trying real hard. He's 5'8". That doesn't work. Next guy. Don't need it. So put that aside. Matthew Stafford of the Dolphins, though, is interesting to me because the Dolphins are in the proverbial win now mode. They're in their window where they think they've got a chance to compete for a Super Bowl championship. They've got Tyreek Hill. They've got Jalen Waddle. They've got some guys that can do some things offensively. They just need a quarterback. We've seen what Matthew Stafford can do when he shows up in a new place with the firepower that he brings, with the expertise that he brings. Mike McDaniel obviously is a very competent offensive-minded coach, and I think Matthew Stafford would thrive in that environment. The question is, what's the price? What's the cost coming back the other way? If the Rams could juice their future with multiple picks, in particular first-round picks, or a first-round pick and other draft picks along the way, I really do think it is something that the Rams at least have to consider. Not necessarily do, but sit back and think about it, because look at the surrounding circumstances. The Rams right now look like they are in a really bad spot. they have all sorts of health issues at all sorts of different positions. If this were just one guy that you needed to get back, sure, maybe you cross your fingers and you wait for the cavalry to come in and save you. But you're missing both of your wide receivers. You're missing multiple offensive linemen. You're missing multiple defenders. This is a problem that might not have a solution. So this season may spiral out of control sooner than later. We'll see what happens on Sunday against the Niners. I know we're going to talk about that coming up in just a little bit. That's part one. Part two is the Rams and Matthew Stafford seem to be in some sort of negotiation, to put it, friendly terms, a confrontation, maybe in less than friendly terms, about his contract coming into this season. We know he got it done right before the start of camp, but it did seem like there was a disconnect in what the Rams wanted and what Matthew Stafford wanted. Maybe this is a time for them to both move on and get what they want moving forward. The Rams, Matthew Stafford's the second oldest starting quarterback in the league. He's still really good, and I don't know if you're going to get a better guy than him right away, but if you could rebuild that O-line, if you could rebuild the secondary, if you could rebuild some other places with those picks, and then maybe find a quarterback eventually, I really do think it is something you consider. I don't think it's a no-brainer, do it, but I think in a closed-door meeting with Kevin Demoff and Les Snead and Sean McVay, of course, and maybe Stan Kroenke is in that meeting, and you have that conversation about where are we with this team, where are we going to be in the future with Matthew Stafford, and what would the future look like without him?
Absolutely. And I think that just getting back to your initial take on this suggestion from Chase Daniel, yes, that's a trade that you wouldn't want to make. And sure, the Carolina Panthers, they're one of the most dysfunctional organizations in football. Just go ask Mel Kiper Jr., his take on that. And yes, Bryce Young is slight of size. I don't know if you saw this offseason when he was going to training camp and he had the big JanSport backpack on and he looked like he was a seventh grader going to middle school. So yeah, he does look undersized. I do think a change of scenery would do him well, but I'm with you. I'm not in on the Bryce Young business if I'm the Rams either, and I wouldn't consider a deal for Young as the solution. But I think the bigger picture here is that, yes, if you lose on Sunday and you fall to 0-3, and then you maybe fall to 0-4. The Rams, they haven't beaten the Chicago Bears in Chicago since 2003. It's an early morning start. Yes, you might have to have a difficult conversation, or at least have the conversation internally, because as you mentioned, got very interesting this offseason with the two sides, Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford. And McVay said about those contract talks, there were some real conversations that existed that I think were really healthy for us to be able to move forward in the right direction. And kind of trying to speak fluent Sean McVay there, I think you can kind of extrapolate from that is, I think Matthew Stafford made it very clear his intentions moving forward and that they're going year to year at this point. There is no commitment from the Rams or Matthew Stafford essentially beyond this season. He's essentially on a one-year deal for $40 million. And that's the truth of it. That's how they reworked that contract. And if you're Matthew Stafford, what has he made clear? He wants to win championships. To get that gold jacket, you need to win you need to go at least deep into the postseason, maybe one or two more times. Another Super Bowl, I think, would absolutely cement it. But if you don't think you can do that with the Rams, maybe on his end, he would want to be traded. And if you're on the Rams side, you look at the fact that Aaron Donald retires. You look at the fact that Cooper Kupp deals with these injuries. And Matthew Stafford, if he doesn't have the weapons and he's behind an offensive line that isn't at full strength, you just wonder what this team's ceiling could be. Now, if you fall to 0-3, 1990, only 4 teams that have fallen to 0-3 have made the playoffs. Since 2019, only 4.9% of teams that started 0-2 have made the playoffs. So, last thing I want to say before I send it back to you is they have the leverage in these situations. If you're the Dolphins and you're the Rams, this is the first time in one of these mega trades that the Rams would say, we hold all of the leverage. Give us multiple first-round picks potentially. Look at the Jets deal that they got for Aaron Rodgers. You kind of use that as a blueprint, as a potential trade. I'm not saying I would do it. I'm just kind of laying it out there.
They have the cards, right? They are the ones that get to dictate the terms. The Dolphins are dealing from a position of weakness. They have to have a quarterback. They need somebody right away. The Rams have somebody that, for all the reasons that you just laid out, D-Mac, is available, or at least to a point. I think you nailed an important part too. Matthew Stafford, the only thing left for him to do in this league is win more. if we're being perfectly honest, and as Rams fans, it's no fun to say, this team's not going to win the Super Bowl this year. They're not. And that's what that's what Matthew Stafford wants. That's what the Dolphins want. That's what the Rams need. What they can do is start whatever is coming next, get started on that, and they can juice it, right? They can juice it with multiple high-level picks, first-round picks, second-round picks, whatever that may be, because the fact of the matter is, look at what you have. Cooper Kupp, this is 3 years in a row where he has been crushed by injuries. That's who he is moving forward, unfortunately. Love to be wrong. Don't think I am. Puka Nacua has a history of getting hurt a lot. Last year was the one time in his college career, in his professional career, where he hasn't been banged up. The odds of him continuing to be banged up are probably pretty good. You need to start rebuilding that offensive line. But one of your tackles is maybe not good enough. The other one has been around a very long time. You need real replacements at some very important positions. And if you can do it all at once, or at least in a couple of years, it's something you have to consider. You have to I'm not saying that you have to do it, but it is something to be seriously considered. And if they did do it, I certainly would understand why.
No doubt about it. I think that lot is riding on this game on Sunday. And thankfully, we'll kind of pick up more back up on this conversation in the next segment. Thankfully, the Rams could be catching the 49ers at the right time when you look at their injuries. It's the Injury Bowl on Sunday at SoFi. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
All right, let's talk about FanDuel. Why wouldn't we talk about FanDuel, right? We're always talking about FanDuel here at Locked On because it's America's #1 sportsbook. So why wouldn't we talk about it? But this is, it's a little bit different. All the stuff you love at FanDuel is still all the stuff you love at FanDuel. You can look at futures. You can look at division, conference, Super Bowl odds. Of course, you can go week to week. You can go player props, everything you're looking for at FanDuel. But this right now, and we're running out of time, right now through the end of this weekend, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and you get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. And if you've never had the Sunday Ticket, you don't know what you're missing. You see everything, right? You not only get to see your team, you get to see all the teams every Sunday. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com, download America's #1 sportsbook, and start enjoying your free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket.
And we are off and running here on Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also, a special shout out to those everyday listeners out there watching and listening to every single episode of Locked On Rams. And if you are not a member of that Everyday Listeners Club, what are you waiting for? Join right now. Membership is 100% free, and you won't miss a thing about your Los Angeles Rams. All right, Travis, so kind of picking it up here in the second segment, a little more on the Matthew Stafford talk. And look, I just want to say this. We've talked about this in the past. When you have a Super Bowl winning quarterback, a guy that's anywhere from top 5 to top 10 on the low end in the league, and a coach like Sean McVay, you definitely want to think long and hard before you give that up, because it could be a long time before you can find a franchise quarterback that can win you a Super Bowl again. Just ask the Miami Dolphins. Just ask teams out there that just haven't gotten over the hump because they didn't have a quarterback. But as you mentioned, the Aaron Rodgers deal, kind of using Aaron Rodgers as kind of the foundation there. In that deal in 2023, the Jets, they swapped a first-round pick with the Packers. They also trade a second-round pick and a sixth-round pick, a conditional pick that could lead to another first-round pick. So, yeah, I mean, that kind of would be the template there as far as what you would use to consider making a deal. But I do think that, look, at the end of the day, Matthew Stafford has been happy here. He's had success here. And if you were to trade Matthew Stafford, you already did everything you wanted to do with that and win a Super Bowl. So kind of want to make that clear. But I would much rather see Matthew Stafford make another Super Bowl run with the team that he's already won a Super Bowl with. I still think it's too early to punt on this season. I think it's too early to consider trading Matthew Stafford. There was a report by Dan Graziano earlier today that said that the Rams might be looking to add another wide receiver. So right now it feels like the Rams are looking to try to fix things by adding players and weathering the storm until Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua can return versus just saying, okay, let's go to a full rebuild. I don't think that's what this organization wants to do at this point. And also, too, you mentioned left tackle, right? Alec Jackson, he's back after missing the first couple of games due to a suspension. And yes, they have not addressed the left tackle spot with a franchise left tackle since Andrew Whitworth went out, right? And I see people out there saying, oh, why didn't the Rams get a left tackle to protect Matthew Stafford? Guess what? Aaron Donald retired. You needed someone else to rush the passer. And Jared Verse has been one of the only bright spots on the defense so far. He has 6 pressures. That leads all rookies. He has an 83 run defense grade. That's third among edge rushers. 4 run stops. That's third. A 24.3% pass run win rate. That's fourth. He's been a top 5 edge so far in just 2 games.
Yeah, no, they got the right guy. Don't get it twisted. Just because the season has gotten off to an incredibly bumpy start, don't get it twisted on anything with regards to Jared Verse. He's been as good as advertised, quite frankly, probably better, right? I guarantee you, if you went up in the draft and you asked some of those teams that picked ahead of the Rams, would you want your guys or do you want that guy? They'd take our guy, right? So he's been really good. Don't get that confused at all. I want to go back to what you were talking about. The Stafford deal was a massive success for the Rams. Whatever happens from this point forward, whatever, it was a huge win. They got an elite quarterback that won them the Super Bowl. Full stop. That's it. They win, right? That is a winning combination. The question is, can you win it twice? Can you flip it to go do it again? And look, I'm not saying that there's another Matthew Stafford available out there. There aren't. They found the right guy at the right point. He's an elite performer. You've heard me say this all the time. If you have one of those guys, you always at least have a chance. And those guys, there might be 10 of them in the league. He's one of them. So it is a big risk to go out there and assume that you can find another one. The thing that gives you a little bit of comfort in that is Sean McVay. Sean McVay took Jared Goff, who looked broken, turned him into a Super Bowl appearing quarterback. Took Matthew Stafford, who was not broken, and boom, they punched their ticket right away. So there is some optimism there. And if you can get a whole bunch of picks along with it, that's great news. Last thing on this is when you're talking about the Aaron Rodgers deal that they did in New York, this is good news for the Rams. Look, the Jets looked really good last night. You know why they looked really good last night? It's because they finally have a quarterback that works. They finally have a quarterback that's competent and skilled. Matthew, that right now is the time to call the Dolphins and say, look, you guys can do the same thing that they're doing, but it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you long term. It's not going to cost you right now. Today's price is not tomorrow's price. So you better do it right now and make an offer, because I do think the Rams would listen. I don't know if they do it, but they would certainly ask for everything. All they can do is say no and come back with most of everything. See what you can get out of it. I think it's a really wise move to at least consider.
Yeah, any good organization is going to pick up the phone and try to just at least hear offers, especially when you're in the state that they're in. But It does bear repeating what they were responding to teams with last year. I mean, when they wanted Matthew Stafford last year, the Jets, they just said, hey, we are not showing any interest or any willingness to get a deal done. Would that be the case this year? That remains to be seen. But look,
the biggest thing that could change too, D-Mac, the biggest change could be is that Stafford's into it. That maybe a year ago he wasn't into it. Maybe a year ago he told them, listen, I know you're probably getting calls. I have no interest in that. I'm just telling you right now, if somebody comes and asks me, I'm going to blow a hole in the side of that thing. I'm not doing it. But it could be right now, hey, if you guys are thinking about it, I'm down. That could be the biggest difference. I'll tell you what, and we'll see. Keep your eyes on Kelly Stafford or your ears on Kelly Stafford, because she may tip the hand on what they're thinking long before anybody else does, because she will let her feelings know, as they say.
Yeah, she's not draped down like Rams gear this Sunday. Maybe something will be up if she's wearing, I don't know, like a Dan Marino throwback or something. I don't know. But yeah, no, for sure. Look, I think that another thing, too, I want to mention, too, is you mentioned Sean McVay. And Sean McVay, of course, is going to factor in heavily to this conversation. He's a big part of the equation, because we saw what happened in 2022 when the Rams won 5 games. It almost drove him to retirement. Does Sean McVay want to enter a rebuild with a quarterback that is either a rookie or you draft one at the end of this season? I mean, that's a lot of uncertainty from that standpoint as well. So I'm sure that that's going to weigh heavily in this too. But, could really kind of put a put these conversations and all the speculation away is if they win on Sunday against the San Francisco 49ers. And right now, yes, it's the 49ers. The 49ers, save for last year in week 18 when you had Sam Darnold versus Carson Wentz, and Puka Nacua sets the rookie receiving record. Outside of that, the Rams have had a lot of struggles against the 49ers in the regular season. Currently, they're a 6.5-point underdog in this one. But really, the big storyline heading into this game is the injuries. On the Rams side, you're, of course, out a ton of guys that this is supposed to be a 30-minute show. I don't think we can list all of them, of course. But, I mean, Jonah Jackson, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, the list goes on and on. But on the 49ers side, you're out CMC. You're out Deebo Samuel. You could be out George Kittle. And you could also be out Charvarius Ward, who's their number one quarterback. So, I mean, think about this. They don't have their top tight end, top cornerback, top running back, top receiver, along with Brandon Ayuk. So you need a lot from Brandon Ayuk in this one to win. And really, this is a big test for Brock Purdy to see if he can get it done on the road in the Rams home opener and really say, okay, is it about the weapons or is it about him?
Yeah, look, they're both banged up. I think that neither one of these teams is firing with all of their guys, but I just think that what the Niners have that what the Rams don't have is they have an offensive line that's functioning. They have an offensive line that's not deeply depleted the way that it is. Trent Williams is going to be there. Just go behind him and go forward, and you've got a really good chance of winning the game. And the Niners have been the much more physical team when they've played the Rams over the last few years. So I think the advantage still lies on that side. And the trouble with the Rams for in the injury market, DMAC, is that these aren't. Look, I'll back up a little bit. The reason Cooper Kupp isn't on the IR is because they don't have any more IR spots to use. Yeah. They've used them all. This wasn't just we think he's going to be back soon. We've already used almost all 8 of our IR designations for the entire season. It's the second week of the year. And these are injuries that, and McVay has said it, just because you have to miss 4 games doesn't mean that it's only going to be 4 games, that it could be 5, 6, who knows how long it could be before some of these guys come back. And it's at the most, if you and I listed the 5 most important players that the Rams could not afford to lose over the course of the regular season, 4 of those guys are missing right now. You got 2 starters on the offensive line, you got Puka and you got Kupp. There's a point where it's just you can only do so much with what you have. Now, the good news is their season is on the line. The good news is Sean McVay is a really good coach. The good news is Matthew Stafford will be there. The tight ends will be there. Kyron Williams will be there. Blake Corum will be there. So hopefully they can find a way to control some offense. But the ask going into this game on Sunday is significant considering how depleted they are with injuries.
Yeah, and I think that's important to point out, the Cooper Kupp situation. A lot of Rams fans were kind of excited to hear that he wasn't being placed on the IR. And then first thing I said on the show, of course, is, it's a roster situation. It's a logistical situation. And just listen to Sean McVay. A wise man once told me, don't listen to what they say, watch what they do. And what he said was he's going to be out for an extended period of time. So watch what he does. And when he comes back, you already have Puka expected to miss 5 to 7 weeks, Cooper Kupp out for an extended period of time. But yeah, definitely the matchup advantage that you pointed out is that 49ers offensive line and the fact that they still have had success running the football. I think almost for me, Trent Williams, as you mentioned, he's almost like their version of like Aaron Donald, like, bro, like, when are you going to retire? Like, please, like, I mean, why'd you sign a new 3-year deal for $82 million? Like, you're going to really just ball out for that long? But yeah, I mean, that's really kind of been the story early on for the 49ers is exit CMC, who fantasy managers like myself are just like killing themselves over, and enter Jordan Mason, who's been fantastic. I mean, 2 weeks through the first 2 weeks of the season, 147 yards in his first game, 100 yards in his second game, has 2 touchdowns. And then you look at the Rams run defense. The Rams run defense has allowed 394 yards this season. That's 5.5 yards per carry. That's the 3rd worst in the National Football League. I mean, guys like Troy Reeder, Christian Roseboom, they have really been one of the weak spots along this linebacking core. You're not seeing them fill gaps, getting off blocks. I mean, it's definitely going to be a big challenge. And we know that that's always been the game plan for Kyle Shanahan against this team, is just run the football down the Rams' throat, especially up the middle. So that's one area we're going to have to look and just hope that they have a better performance on Sunday.
Yeah, no big surprise, right? When you look at Kyle Shanahan's father, Mike Shanahan, longtime coach of the Broncos, Super Bowl winning coach, he did the same thing. He just would take one running back, one guy would leave, another guy would come in. There's another 1,000-yard rusher. Just one, and I'm not saying that Mason is the same as McCaffrey. McCaffrey's an All-Pro. It's not that, but it's close. It's close enough to where the offense still pretty much looks like the San Francisco offense. So I'm not surprised at all that just because they're down a guy here or there that they haven't found a way to move the ball. They're much like the Rams. They're really well coached. They execute their game plan, and they're incredibly physical. And like we've both mentioned, Trent Williams he's a game changer.
Game changer. We're going to look at some more game changers and throw out some predictions. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
All right, let's talk about Prize Picks, right? Prize Picks is the best. Here's the thing. Prize Picks, more or less. Pick more, pick less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you can watch the winnings roll in. For instance, I had a more than on Ohtani home runs, Judge home runs, and Juan Soto home runs. Bam, done. You can win season long, and you can go week to week. And right now on Prize Picks in September, they're giving you a freebie with Caleb Williams. When he throws for a single yard, you win. But you better get on it, because when September is over, so is the freebie from Prize Picks. You can win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. So what are you waiting for? Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL, LOCKEDON NFL, and you're going to get $50 instantly when you play just $5. That's code LOCKEDONNFL on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play just $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. What are you waiting for? Go now. Go do it.
And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. By the way, game ball for this episode, Travis, goes to you for waiting 25 minutes, 25 long minutes without mentioning Shohei Ohtani. I can't believe you did it. I can't believe you did it. It's like the all-time streak. I mean, can Shohei play corner for us this weekend? Can he play receiver? I'm pretty sure he could. I mean, don't you think I could see him getting like a nice red zone touchdown?
Real quick, since you brought it up, is that the greatest offensive game in the history of baseball last night? Well, I mean,
definitely up there. I did some deep dives. I mean, certainly is the best offensive performance in Dodgers history. 6 for 6, 3 home runs, 2 doubles. I mean, 17 total bases. And he did hit that third one off a 68-mile-per-hour fastball.
He did. But he also had 2 steals. He nearly had the cycle because he got thrown out trying to stretch one of his doubles into a triple.
What a hater for throwing him out too, right?
Right. Bad guy. And by the way, let me give a little love to my fellow Gaucho Skip Schumacher for going at Ohtani. I loved it. I loved the, blanket. Let's go. Let's see what happens. Let's see some history. Big ups to Skip Schumacher.
F this. Yeah, right? Right. I love that. But hey, speaking of this matchup, though, you got the Rams, you got the 49ers this Sunday. And look, at the end of the day, yes, things from an injury standpoint haven't gone the Rams' way. It is at home, expected to be 65% 49ers fans. Hopefully, you'll see sad 49ers fans walking out of SoFi like we saw in the NFC Championship game in 2021. I think that, look, Kyren Williams is going to have to step up. The running game's going to have to step up. I mean, through a couple of games, Kyren Williams averaging just a little over 2 yards per carry. You need to see some more from him. And look, we'll see. Does Jordan Whittington have that big game? He's going to have a huge opportunity. He played every snap in the second half. I look for him because of the blocking, because of the schemes. He could be someone that kind of jumps up and says, you know what, Puka did it last year. I'm not saying I want to be Puka, but we have the pattern here of guys stepping up in this situation, and guys like DeMarcus Robinson, Tyler Johnson, Colby Parkinson. And really, you're going to need to find some way to keep Nick Bosa off of Matthew Stafford. And last year, Rob Havenstein, his worst game of the year, came against this 49ers team. And he's been kind of switching up on both sides, but you're going to see a lot of that matchup. Last year, by the way, Havenstein had a career-low 27.7 pass blocking grade going up against Nick Bosa. So look out for that matchup as well. Look, this is the last week I'm going to do any type of homer pick, but it's at home opener against San Francisco. I got the Rams winning 24-20.
Sure.
You don't have to throw out a prediction, by the way, but that's fine.
Yeah, I think you said the most important thing first. They're going to have to rely on Kyron Williams. They're going to have to control the clock. They're going to have to keep the San Francisco offense on the sidelines. They're going to have this game be played in a relatively low point total. They're not going to be able to get into a 35-31 situation with this team. They just don't have the firepower right now at the wide receiver position. They don't have the protection to allow them to give Matthew Stafford the time to do the things that he would need to do that. I think they're really up against it. The reason I give them a chance is because their season is on the line. That if they are going to find a way to weather the storm of injuries, if they are going to find a way to weather until Puka and Kupp get back, until Avila gets back, until Jonah Jackson gets back, until Darius Williams gets back, until John Johnson III gets back. These are all guys that are on the IR with the exception of Kupp. You're going to have to win. You have to win this game because, like you mentioned, 0-3, that's basically a wrap. You've got Chicago after that. You got Green Bay coming in. Jordan Love will be back. And there just isn't enough runway left to try to dig out of an 0-4, 0-5, 1-4 sort of hole. So this is it. They've got to find a way to win it. So that's why I do give them a chance because they really don't have a lot of other options, but it's an incredibly tall ask.
No doubt about it. And they know that if you lose on Sunday, what this means for their season. But let's not forget, This is the same team that started 3-6 last year, went on a run, and were one of the more surprising stories of the season. They were able to make the playoffs last year. So it's not over. If your chances take a major hit, they absolutely do. I think that you are catching the 49ers at the best possible time, potentially just because of all the injuries that they're dealing with. It is your home opener. At this point, Matthew Stafford is as probably healthy as he's going to be in the early stage of the season. So let's hope the Rams get a win. And hey, who knows? Like I said, maybe Stafford goes full Ohtani. I mean, what would the 6-for-6 equivalent be? Like 6 touchdowns? I mean, I don't know. By the way, Travis, I couldn't do that. I couldn't go 6-for-6 with 3 home runs, 2 doubles, 4 runs scored, 2 stolen bases. I couldn't do that like today against T-ballers. You know what I mean? Like in a T-ball league. You know, to do that in a big league, what would your line be? I mean, you could probably, you were a former college player, so
I was a pitcher. Now, see, I did plenty of work giving up days like that because I was lousy. So I would give up lots of home runs and lots of steals and lots of doubles and lots of runs. But it was like I'm so glad that I was in front of the TV to see what I saw with Ohtani because you're never going to see it again. I'm never going to see it again. No one is ever going to see what we saw yesterday. And I'm going to try to think about that maybe by the time 4 o'clock runs around on Sunday afternoon, because I have a feeling we might not have a lot of great things to talk about here.
Area 51 members, just Mr. Shohei Ohtani. But that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Rams. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. And you can follow the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers, at Travis Rogers. Also tune into his show, Travis Rogers, The Great DeMarco Farr, on ESPN Radio and YouTube. Go check that out. Definitely. But until next time, whose house? It's Locked On Rams house.